So, welcome everyone to the World Green Building Council Sustainable Cities Initiative guest speaker series. This is our kickoff session, and today we're going to be hearing from Clay Nesler from Johnson Controls. He's going to be talking to us about the soon to be launched Sustainable Energy for All program. It's and within that, well, the Sustainable Energy Program, Sustainable Energy for All program is an established initiative of the UN. But underneath that, we're going to be launching the Global Energy Efficiency Accelerator platform and the Building and Efficiency Accelerator platform. So I'm going to hand it over to Clay. Welcome, Clay.
Thank you, Michelle, and hi, everyone. It's a great pleasure to be able to talk to the Sustainable Cities Initiative members today. Very excited to share with you details about both the Global Energy Efficiency Accelerator platform and the Building Efficiency Accelerator, which is part of it. Also on the line is Reed Detchen and Lauren Gritsky from the UN Foundation. Johnson Controls and the UN Foundation are co-leaders of the Building Efficiency Accelerator, and Reed will be joining me after the initial presentation and available to answer questions. Hopefully you can see my desktop. I'm going to go through a brief presentation. The presentation, I'm warning, has a lot of text in it. What I wanted to do was be able to provide details which could be referred to after the presentation. I am now trying to go to the second slide. There we go. Many of you have probably heard of the Sustainable Energy for All initiative. This is an initiative that was part of the United Nations, kicked off by the Secretary General. And at the Rio Plus 20 conference, Sustainable Energy for All was really elevated to be an initiative. And Kanda Yumkela was named the General Director of this particular initiative. Sustainable Energy for All has one goal, and that's to achieve sustainable energy for all on the planet by 2030. There were three key objectives for Sustainable Energy for All. One is ensuring universal access to modern energy services. Two was the doubling of the global rate of improvement in energy efficiency. And then the third objective is the doubling of the share of renewable energy in the global energy mix. Most of the initial activities focused on Sustainable Energy for All were on the universal access to modern energy services area. Countries, developing countries, in fact, many of the least developed countries signed on initially to this initiative, where there are many communities that are off the grid and obviously have a great desire to bring the convenience and the safety and the health implications for energy access. There's been a lot of progress in that area, and it's probably the area you've heard the most about. With respect to renewable energy, IRENA has taken on a global role of guiding the activities of bringing renewable energy to developing parts of the world. And obviously renewable energy is a key strategy in bringing universal access to those that are not currently connected to the electric grids within their countries. Energy efficiency, frankly, hadn't been given a lot of attention, even though it is one of the three key objectives in the initial days. At the World Economic Forum meeting in Davos, Switzerland this February, it was decided there was a 1-hour special session on energy efficiency and ideas of how the private sector and civil society could come together to support that third leg of the Sustainable Energy for All stool. And what they decided to do was to have a working group meeting in Paris in April, where I believe it was about 70 organizations came together, private sector, public sector, as well as civil society came together, and that's where the Energy Efficiency Accelerator platform was created. A lot has happened since then, and over the course of the next couple minutes we'll be providing an update on what the platform looks like, as well as some details on the individual accelerators. The accelerator platform was created out of the initial meeting in Paris with the goal of doubling the rate of energy efficiency improvement by 2030. The overall objective is to promote a major scaling up of energy efficiency gains around the world and to accelerate investment in energy efficiency by providing technical assistance, technical support, financial resources, and collaboration. One of the differences about the energy efficiency accelerators is that a number of them are focused on subnational governments. The energy access and many of the other programs are really focused on countries. And what we believe is that there are some areas, such as building energy efficiency, where a lot of that is being driven by cities and states and regions. So this will be the first program that really takes a focus at that city, state, and regional level. The deliverable of the accelerator platform for each of these government jurisdictions is a plan of action. And it's a plan of action that combines policies and projects that will be undertaken with both a short-term and a long-term view in order to meet that longer-term doubling rate of energy efficiency objective. And what we have been doing since the April meeting is pulling together a network of experts, institutions, and businesses that will participate in the initiative. The Accelerator platform is designed around specific industry sectors. And right now there are 4 active accelerators. The one I'm going to spend the most time talking about is around building efficiency. So a lot more detail on that to come. There is another accelerator on district energy. This is another accelerator that's focused more at a city or community or subnational level. It involves both district heating, district cooling, as well as distributed energy, combined heating, cooling, and power at a city level, and the goal of which is to expand the use of those technologies in cities around the world. There is a lighting and appliances accelerators. The lighting one builds on the Enlighten program, which is a very successful United Nations environmental program initiative, which seeks to phase out incandescent and other low efficiency lighting for higher efficiency fluorescent and LED lighting. That has been a successful partnership with a number of private sector companies, Osram and Philips and others, and there are a number of countries that have taken on that initiative and used it to accelerate their efforts to phase out incandescents and put in place high efficiency lighting. That type of structure is now being extended to appliances, whether air conditioning or other energy consuming appliances. And then transport and motor vehicle fuel efficiency is again an extension of an existing UN program that was really focused on increasing vehicle fuel efficiency and is a national based program. More about the Building Efficiency Accelerator. In this particular accelerator, again, it mirrors the overall objective of doubling the rate of building energy efficiency, and individual jurisdictions that participate would target specific sectors within their jurisdiction. It could be focused on, for instance, schools. It could be focused on public housing. It could be focused on all public buildings within the jurisdiction, or in fact, it could be focused on private sector buildings within the boundaries. It's envisioned that the individual jurisdictions that participate would target those sectors where they believe they could most benefit from the support of the accelerator network and where they could make the most gains. The goal is to implement one enabling policy and one demonstration project as initial actions as part of a policy plan of action, and that those would be announced at COP21 in Paris. Of course, we all know that next year in Paris, there's high expectations and hopes for a global agreement to address global warming and climate change. And a lot of the activities that are planned for New York later this month, and at Lima at COP20, and at the Sustainable Energy for All Forum next year, are really leading up to very significant commitments and actions in Paris. The jurisdictions would also be asked to create a baseline of their building energy efficiency performance. They would be agreeing to track and report the annual progress on their performance. They would also agree to share their experiences, best practices, and challenges with other governments that are part of the overall network. So that really represents the responsibilities that governments have as part of the Accelerator. Business, NGOs, and other international organizations also make commitments as part of the Accelerator. First step is to facilitate a collaborative multi-stakeholder workshops or meetings that would serve to define and prioritize the policy and project actions. These workshops would include government leadership. They would involve the private sector. They would involve civil societies. We believe one of the key success factors will be sponsorship by local civil society organizations very active in the city, community, or region in which the workshop is being held. Policies are, the policy areas to be prioritized would include things such as government leadership, such as having retrofit programs around their own public sector and government buildings, work on building codes, not just developing building codes, but enforcing them and applying them, equipment standards, performance benchmarking and disclosure, third-party financing models, key enablers for allowing the private sector and public sector to be able to make needed infrastructure improvements, and finally programs that would typically be managed at a regional, city, or through a utility program. Other commitments by our institutions, they commit to provide governments with technical support, leveraging best-in-class tools, databases, and subject matter experts. I'll be sharing some of the organizations that have already committed to participate and help the governments address these policy opportunities, help them with best practices in implementing demonstration projects. They also commit to help governments communicate and promote their commitments, calculate their baseline based on best practices around the world, report progress, and provide a platform for sharing these experiences, challenges, and best practices. A number of international financial partners have also signed on to the Building Efficiency Accelerator, and they will be providing funding to support policy development and demonstration projects. One of the things we're trying to do is we're going to be creating a menu of policy options with suggested types of demonstration projects, working with these global financial partners to make sure that we make it as easy as possible for the funding to be provided to these governments, oftentimes through their national governments in partnership to be able to make progress. We have decided that rather than knocking on hundreds of doors in an attempt to communicate and solicit commitments to participate in the Accelerator, that we would leverage some of the initial relationships that we already have. There are many organizations active with cities and subnational governments, including the C40 Cities Climate Leadership Group, the R20 Regions of Climate Action, Climate Group Regions and States Network, ICLEI's Local Governments for Sustainability Program. Some of the IFIs have programs such as the World Bank's SMAP, City Energy Efficiency Transformation Initiative, Global Green Growth Forum, Global Cities Covenant, and the Global Cities Institute. These are all organizations that we've reached out to and that have expressed interest in engaging their cities to consider and potentially participate in the network. There are many other organizations that have expressed an interest in supporting the Accelerator. Speaking specifically about the Building Efficiency Accelerator, they would include the World Business Council for Sustainable Development, which have held a number of workshops with cities, most recently Warsaw in Poland, with the goal very similar to identify policies, practices, and projects which can advance building energy efficiency in the city. The Global Building Performance Network, UNEP, UNDP, United Nations Foundation had underway for the last couple of years kind of a global building efficiency partnership. A number of the members of that partnership are very interested in supporting this as well. The IFIs, including World Bank, IFC, EBRD, JEF, they're interested in supporting, and I'll let you read through the rest of the list. Notably towards the bottom is the World Green Building Council. We're delighted that Jane and Michelle and the WGBC have signed on formally expressing their interest in using the network of both sustainable cities as well as the global network of national councils to be able to provide support to a city. So thank you very much for your vote of confidence and your expression of interest. One question that always comes up is, what do cities, states, regions, and what do the institutional partners actually sign up for as part of their commitment? So what I've done is I've shared some text directly from the statement of intent or the letters of intent that we've asked the network partners to sign. The objective, and as you can see, this is a very simple document, so I have reproduced it word for word in the slides. It makes for a dense slide, but I think it best communicates the details. It's an intention to formally establish a partnership as part of Sustainable Energy for All at a platform level. To support energy efficiency action leading to significant scaling up of improvements in the sector selected. And the sector there refers to building efficiency or district energy or lighting and appliances. The statement of intent is a non-binding agreement. Of course, this is a voluntary program. These are not legally binding in any way between the United Nations and individual governments. It simply confirms that discussions have taken place between the parties and that that the institutions commit to help governments develop a plan of action and to help them build local capacity to accelerate energy efficiency investment in selected jurisdictions. The only actions required subsequent to signing a letter of intent proceed to define the scope and extent that the partner is willing to provide as part of the Accelerator platform network. Many of the private sector partners that have signed on are interested in particular geographic regions or particular types of policy situations. So a company might sign on and be very interested in developing countries in Asia, for instance. Some of the NGOs are interested in certain policy areas such as building codes or finance, and they may focus on that. So really it's just agreeing to work with Sustainable Energy for All to identify the best opportunities to leverage the capabilities of each particular organization. The next slide here shows the statement of intent which governments would sign, and I have highlighted in blue the text which is different. So in this case, an individual jurisdiction would sign on, and the differences under actions, they agree to proceed to sign a non-binding memorandum of understanding, or aide-mémoire, describing in more detail the actions that will be taken, including implementation or expansion of policies, programs, and projects within their jurisdiction, and to work with the partners in a collaborative fashion to bring capability building, to help with this decision making. And essentially, they agree to work with Sustainable Energy for All to mobilize both technical support as well as financial support for their operations. Next steps. There will be a very significant announcement of the overall energy efficiency platform at the UN Climate Summit coming up in a couple weeks in September. There will be a large general session which will include the world leaders and other dignitaries that are part of the general meeting. It'll be a short 50-minute section, and it will include both energy efficiency and renewable energy initiatives as part of Sustainable Energy for All. There will also be a couple side events which are planned, which are longer and focused specifically on energy efficiency, where building efficiency and the other accelerators will be highlighted. We plan to bring together those organizations which have made commitments or plan to make commitments at COP20 in Lima. That is in early December of this year. We expect to recognize those organizations and bring them together for initial discussions. Again, leading up for major announcements that would be made as part of COP21 in Paris. It is planned that there will be another Sustainable Energy for All Summit in New York sometime probably in the summer of 2015 as kind of a launching pad for Paris. For more information on the Building Efficiency Accelerator or the overall platform, Luis Gomez Echeverri is part of the global support team based in Vienna for Sustainable Energy All, works very closely with Dr. Kenda Kella. I have his email address. Reed Detchen, Vice President of Energy and Climate at the United Nations Foundation, and hopefully on the call today, and myself at Johnson Controls are the co-leaders driving the Building Efficiency Accelerator. We both had the pleasure of being in Paris at the April meeting and are really delighted to bring this forward. At this point, I would just like to say that it would be wonderful if individual members of the Sustainable Cities Initiative believed that they had the types of relationships with the cities they work closely with, and that they would view this as a mutual opportunity to work very closely with those cities in order to bring the technical and financial resources and the capabilities around policy and projects to those cities. We would be delighted to reach out to either your individual organizations and the cities that you support or subnational regions and bring you in. We are still collecting names for the summit in New York, and of course with the goal being significant commitments on a global basis in Paris. There is plenty of time to make due consideration and to work through. A number of cities will be making commitments through letters of intent in New York, but we expect many more over the coming months. At this point, I will open it up for any questions, and I see that Reed Detchen is listening in, and hopefully he'll be able to help me answer any questions. Michelle, over to you.
Thank you so much, Clay. That was fantastic. And I'm going to go ahead and unmute Clay. I'd like to, I think, Reed, you have yourself on mute. And Clay, I might also ask you to turn down your speaker, as I do hear a bit of echo. And if Reed, you want to unmute yourself, we'll open the questions up to you. I see that we have a question from Tony. Before I get to that, I was hoping we could, and I will, please, anyone else, please also plug your questions in here. Before we jump into the questions, though, I did want to just clarify one little thing, Clay, or just ask you to expand on something. I guess I'm putting my own question first. Under the Business Energy Efficiency Accelerator, kind of this notion around, you invited everyone on the call to be a part. If you could talk, just to explain a little bit more how a GBC who might have some relationships with the subnational governments or city governments, what kinds of the role you see for GBC? I think they're wanting clarify. There's other partners that are going to be working with them, such as C40, etc. What is the role for GBCs? Could you give an example of how you see maybe a GBC or other on-the-ground organization working with a city?
Yeah, sure. In fact, I think one of the best examples would be we've been talking with the Peru Green Building Council, and of course with Lima being the host for COP20, there's a lot of interest in energy efficiency, in demonstrating projects, in taking policy initiatives on in preparation for COP20. And there happens to be a very active, very robust Green Building Council in Peru. I was fortunate enough to attend their council meeting last year in the summer, where we met with the energy minister, we met with the finance minister, we met with a number of city representatives, and really talked about things that could be done within Lima, both as a city, Lima as the capital of Peru, and actually be done across the country to advance building energy efficiency. That very close relationship by that Green Building Council and local and national governments allowed a very, very effective dialogue between UN leadership, Sustainable Energy for All, and UNEP, and the various members of the government to identify opportunities to take action quickly as part of the COP20. The Peru Green Building Council is going to be having their meeting this year during the first week of COP20, and a lot of it will, of course, focus on climate change, and that's a very natural way to convene groups to be able to have this discussion. I envision that a lot of the local green building councils would be interested in engaging with their governments and driving those discussions forward. We had the fortunate opportunity of meeting with a number of those councils in Latin America during recent meetings in Brazil. And for instance, Bogota, Colombia, where their meeting is coming up in a couple weeks, they're very interested in engaging with the Colombian government and the city of Bogota to try to advance the Accelerator. So I think those are examples of the types of role that a local GBC or a national GBC could kind of lead that engagement and be a potential host for the collaborative planning workshop.
Great, thank you. I think that's an important role that green building councils play, is that kind of facilitation role. So building on some of their existing relationships with city governments and local business and national business to be able to kind of be a convener of those different participants. So I think this is a natural role for many green building councils. We do have a couple of other questions, and one is about how the WorldGBC is participating in this. And I'm hearing a teeny bit of echo, so I'm going to kind of mute people on and off here. I think that's fair to say. So we actually formally signed the letter of intent 2 days ago. So I think it remains to be seen exactly how we will participate. But what we saw on there is many of the other participants are organizations that we already have strong relationships with. So, for example, C40 and ICLEI and the IFC, U.S. Green Building Council is a partner. So we saw a lot of organizations that we have good relationships with and have a similar role to us in terms of convening different kinds of organizations. So one of the main reasons we want to be a part of it is to enable National Green Building Council, all of our members, to be able to participate in this as well and to help facilitate that relationship. But Clay, I'm also wondering from your side, I mean, is that a fair characterization of the role that WorldGBC could play?
Yeah, absolutely. I think you've hit it on the head, and I think that is a great opportunity. ICLEI and other organizations have as well formally signed on to the network, and I think their expectation is they view this as a way to work more closely with similar organizations with similar goals, and to be able to marshal resources together, but do it in kind of a coordinated way. There are a lot of opportunities for cities to participate in various of these programs, but in reaching out to the organizations, we found that in fact, many of the engagements they have are really involved in the initial planning phases, workshops, identifying opportunities, and many of the cities and the organizations have really seen this as a way of codifying those commitments and a way of being recognized and a way of being able to share their experiences in taking action on some of the planning activities and strategic planning things. So we think this is a nice sort of way of bringing actions that are underway, bringing in resources to accelerate them, and being able to recognize those cities for the good work that they're doing.
Thanks, Clay. And just speaking of that, bringing resources to bear, there is a question that we received in the chat around funding. So it was brought up from one of our members in Mauritius that they have some challenges related to helping, there are some financial challenges in helping buildings upgrade their performance. For example, put in BMS systems as well. And not to get into too much technical detail, but just wondering, maybe you mentioned some partnering with funding organizations, et cetera. And I know it's early days, but maybe you could talk a little bit more about where some of the, how the funding might be channeled and where you, any discussions around where that might be implemented.
Yeah, so there's funding has come up throughout, and obviously it is a barrier. We see financial assistance happening in one of three areas. One is support for actually doing the policy development. Funding resources within a city, let's say, to develop policies and get those policies enacted legislatively and then implemented on the ground. So think of that as funding for capacity building and policy development. We see the opportunity for funding from some of the IFIs for some of the demonstration projects. Now, a lot of that funding actually funnels through national governments. So one of the things we really look to do is identify relationships between cities, subnational governments, and their national governments, principally ministries of energy, ministries of the environment, natural resources, etc., so that the national governments can help attract some of the funding to support those projects. The third area is there's strong interest in specific policies that would bring private sector financing to those organizations, whether that be through creating ESCOs, implementing on-bill payment through utilities, things like tax incentives or tax-based infrastructure payment plans. So I think those are three opportunities to bring those resources to the cities, and we're open to working in partnership to explore all of them.
Great. One other question, it's kind of a related question, would be around some organizations, some of the Green Building Council members, you know, they're working on different initiatives with some of these same organizations involved in this. For example, with the IFC on codes and regulations projects. I mean, is one of the, I mean, there's really a lot of organizations involved here. Maybe you could, I don't know if the question is really around, is it linkages to existing programs that some of these partner organizations already have?
Yeah. For instance, we've had a series of meetings with the World Bank recently, really understanding SMAP and the programs they have underway, trying to learn best practices in what's worked and what hasn't worked as they've tried to reach out to developing countries and as they're increasingly focused on cities. So at this point in bringing forward the accelerators, there's been a lot of sort of bilateral discussion between the organizations. We don't want to be redundant with anything that's going on. We absolutely don't want to conflict with anything that's going on. What we want to be able to do is kind of bring these collective resources. So again, the word accelerator was very carefully chosen. We're not looking to create new. We're not looking to start from scratch. What we want to do is find initiatives, programs that are underway in cities and subnational governments, and we want to apply additional resources and bring additional expertise to accelerate those. And we think that is the right short-term priority, and we think in that way initiatives that may have started through partnerships with other organizations, this would be a way to accelerate them, bring additional resources and expertise to make them go a little bit faster such that they can move on to the next steps in the policy roadmap.
Great. I think that sounds great. And these are a lot of really good things happening. I think Accelerator sounds like exactly the right words for what those need. Let's see. I'm conscious that we are it's time for us to wrap up. And I'm wondering if you have any last comments or if Reed has any comments that you'd like to share. And I guess while you're thinking about that, I might just note to the Green Building Council members that we will be sending around the sample letter of intent that you can sign, similar to the one that we just signed with the Energy Accelerator project. And we'll also be sending around a sample of the letter of intent that government signs. So you can get a closer look at what exactly it entails. We'll also be sending around this PowerPoint, assuming that's okay, Clay. Can I send around this PowerPoint?
Absolutely. That's why we added more detail than usual to the PowerPoint. We wanted it to be a really good detailed overview of what's involved in the program. So please do distribute it.
Great. So that will be coming your way, everyone who's on the call, and we'll, I think, make those resources available on our website as well. Clay, do you have any last words you'd like to add?
No, just that it's been a great pleasure to speak with all of you. I must say, when I was sitting in Paris in April in discussions about how to move some type of initiative forward, I was very influenced by the great relationships that I have had with many of the World Green Building Council organizations. And in my mind, I believe that we could leverage that organization, which is a perfect kind of combination of private sector capabilities, public interest, and government relationships. I really do believe that the GBCs are in a perfect place to bridge this private sector, public sector collaborative partnership, and we sort of built the Accelerator concept around assuming that this would be a great opportunity in 100 countries around the world with strong presence in major megacities and major cities around the world to really bring what we've worked so hard to do over the last decade of bringing the benefits of energy efficiency, carbon reduction, cost savings, energy security, health, productivity, comfort, all the benefits that come from energy efficiency. We believe this just puts an umbrella, very high profile, global support through the UN, and hope that the councils can take advantage of that and really encourage them to consider participation in recruiting the cities they work with. So thank you for the opportunity today.
And Clay, thank you so much for joining us. It was a pleasure to have you, and we're very excited about this program and look forward to working with you on it.
Likewise.